Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Pinnacle Fraudcast. I'm Faith Seisadine, Communication Strategist for the firm, and I'm joined by Matt Proctor, who is the Small Business Program Manager for Pinnacle. Thanks for being here, Matt.
Thank you, Faith. Glad to be here.
Okay, so let's dive in. We're talking about disaster fraud on this episode, and we're wanting to give you, the listener and the viewer, the tools to help prevent you from becoming a victim. Now, Matt, we're in the throes of hurricane season, and many portions of the country are still recovering from the damage caused by Hurricane Helene. Speak to that a little bit.
Absolutely, Faith. Well, first and foremost, let me start by saying that my heart goes out to all impacted by the recent storms, and that you remain in my thoughts and prayers with the continued recovery efforts. Personally, growing up close to the coast of South Carolina, with Hurricane Hugo being a distinct childhood memory, and calling the Charleston area home today, we certainly stay on high alert this time of year.
Now, natural disasters like hurricanes or tornadoes provide a breeding ground for scams, stealing money from people when they are most vulnerable. With that being said, Matt, what are some things people could be watching out for?
Absolutely, Faith. Well, as I mentioned earlier, staying on high alert with potential storms during this season. It's unfortunate, but also a necessity to stay on high alert with potential fraud, as we tend to see an increase in scammers and fraudulent activity following these significant weather events. On that note, wanted to share a few red flags for those in impacted areas to watch for. With the overall focus, I would say really centering on always taking an abundance of caution. The first item I would mention would be, to simply not trust someone who asks for money to get aid for you. Legitimate disaster assistance sources will not call or text, and will certainly not ask for personal or confidential information, and will not request compensation to be able to offer aid.
And that's extremely important because, again, those who are victims of these disasters, they're at their most vulnerable. And unfortunately, that's when these scammers prey on people. So that is definitely an important tip to drive home, is that people, they will not call or text you. So thank you for that one, Matt. Now, you and I were talking a little bit before the show about some other tips. So one that you mentioned was treat every email like it's from a thief.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To expand on that thought a little further, I would say to basically fully vet the source. And the key point with any suspicious email is I would recommend not opening at all. But if you do, absolutely under no circumstance click on any links or attachments or reply with any personal or confidential information.
Keep your information confidential. One of the other things, especially in this day and age of social media, I'm often on social media, par for the course for the job, and in my personal life. But with that being said, what should people look out for with social media posts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good rule of thumb, Faith, would be to just remain on high alert, an abundance of caution, be especially wary of information and links in social media posts. As you mentioned, the fraudsters definitely use this as a platform to try to prey on those impacted. So I would close that thought with verify first before you trust.
That's a good one. I hope you all are taking notes. Now, also when disasters happen, there is always an influx of people who are wanting to contribute and they're wanting to help, and they might not know how, so they look to nonprofit organizations to help their neighbors in the community recover. But this is something that people should be mindful and watchful of as well, so they don't become a victim of a scam, right?
Absolutely. I would say, research any nonprofit organization before you contribute. Unfortunately, the fraudsters are prone to create fake charities during significant weather events. So be very diligent in verifying the charity is legitimate before donating. My recommendation is to go to the official website to validate the contact info and reach out to the charity directly before proceeding.
Perfect. Now, for those who are trying to rebuild, let's say they were a victim of storms or natural disasters, you know, you have contractors and people coming out of the woodwork claiming that they can help and their deal is the best. What recommendation do you have for, you know, using licensed contractors and that verification process?
Absolutely. Great point, Faith. So I would say, you know, use only licensed contractors. Verify their reliability through trusted references. And certainly if any contractor demands payment in full in advance of delivering a service, my recommendation would be to pump the brakes. Definitely a cause for pause.
I like that one, Matt. Pump the brakes, guys. Pause, take a beat, and it will all work out. Another thing that a lot of people use nowadays is your payment app. So, you know, you recommend taking extra care when sending money via payment apps?
Absolutely. Definitely take extra care when you send money by payment apps such as Zelle, Venmo, to name a few. With any real-time payment service, the funds are typically gone instantaneously and very challenging, if not impossible, to retract once sent. So again, abundance of caution.
Thank you, Matt, for being here today. These are all excellent tips. And remember, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. In the meantime, you can report suspicious activity to the National Center for Disaster Fraud. And for even more helpful tips, be sure to head over to the Fraud Center on pnsp.com. Thank you.